Welcome to the From Concealment Podcast, the show for firearm enthusiasts who like to shoot, train, carry, and compete. Get ready for some shooting and sight, firearm and accessory reviews, and of course, insight on conceal carry. And now, broadcasting from behind enemy lines in the From Concealment studio, it's Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams.
Hey, Freedom Nation, this is Pete Mitchell.
And I'm Dan Sams.
And you are listening to the From Concealment Podcast, which is being brought to you by Fast OC. In fact, Dan, I just did their handgun challenge last Thursday, and it was a lot of fun. So if you were in Orange County, California, looking for a great place to train, maybe do some handgun challenges, they are definitely the place to hit up. I just absolutely love shooting with these guys. They're all really cool guys and gals, and no one really makes you feel stupid when you do bonehead stuff, which is like what I did on Thursday's challenge. but
I saw the video.
Oh, I know, dude. I just there goes the magazine onto the ground. You know, it's like slow mo. Oh, no. And that was one of the ones that made it to video. But bottom line is, if you're looking for some great training, head on over to fastoc.com. Check them out. Sign up for a course. Head over to their handgun challenge. You will probably see me at it. And it's just a lot of fun. Which, speaking of, by the way, so I'm at Thursday's challenge, and this one guy comes up to me, and he goes, "Hey, you've got that podcast." And I go, "Yeah, I do." And he goes, "Man, you know a little bit about a lot of different subjects." and I go, "Well, you might be thinking about my co-host." And he goes, "Yeah, now that I hear your voice, I think it was him."
A little bit about a lot of that is me. I know a little bit about a lot of different subjects. That's how I live my life. Yep.
Dude, I love it, man. And then someone else came up to me. He's like, "Man, you're legit. You got a podcast." I was like, "Dude, this is awesome. I'm finally recognized."
Man. Yeah. I'm getting some comments, man. People are coming up to me and making comments. I need to wear the hat more. But you know, a couple of people here and there have mentioned the podcast, that they're liking it.
We should have made the hat out of tinfoil.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness.
I wonder
if that's, you know what, Pete, we need to make like morale patches, and we'll make them with like an aluminum coating on them, like conceal carry, or, you know, like we'll do something fun with that. Morale patches are the new thing, man.
That would be hot.
Yeah, dude. I would get into that.
So, and where that's coming from, guys, is I actually had a guy come up to me at church on Sunday, and he goes, "Hey, man, I've listened to every episode of your podcast. I love it. I really love it when your buddy wears the tinfoil hat."
That's awesome.
So I'm like, "All right, Dan, we got the green light. We can give more of the tinfoil on the podcast."
All I needed.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. No, I enjoy some of the conspiracy stuff. Yeah, as you know, my policy is, let's try to talk about what we know. Let's try to point out where the inconsistencies are in the public narrative. And then I try not to go the next step of saying, well, here's what I think's happening. I try to just say, all I know is this is crazy.
Right.
And that way, because, you know, we've all seen the movie Conspiracy Theories with Mel Gibson.
Oh, yeah.
Where he, like, has a whole crap ton of
NASA is the one that's creating the earthquakes. And then...
Right, yeah. He's got all these bizarre theories. Well, then he, like, hits on one of them. And, like, everybody wants to kill him. He's like, crap, I hit a nerve.
And he's only got, like, 17 subscribers to his newsletter. And he goes to, like, 17 different post office box to drop it off. Yeah.
Yeah, the dude is awesome. And, yeah, tinfoil cover and everything. He was the man. That dude's my hero. I want to be just like him.
So, hey, I got a funny story for you, man.
Yeah.
This was my dumb bonehead moment yesterday. So this happened on a Sunday. I got a trip coming up, and so I wanted to run over to Costco to pick up a bunch of supplies that I needed for this trip. So Sunday is a really bad day to go to Costco. It's just loaded. And so I go there, you know, brave the crowds, whatever. It's like, I got to do this. It's the only time I'm going to have to do before I got to go on this trip. So I get all the stuff I needed to get, and everyone's there. Like, I am literally parked so far away from the front doors, it's not even funny, right? Because there's just, everyone's there. I'm checking out. Finally get to check out, right? Because the lines were long. Check out, pay for everything. And you know how at Costco they check your receipt before you leave?
Yep.
Well, that always kind of rubs me the wrong way because it's my stuff. Like, it stopped being your stuff when I gave you money for it. You don't have my permission to just rummage through my basket. And so it always, honestly, it always rubs me the wrong way. Yeah. So I get up there and I pick the wrong line. Like, the line is almost back to the registers. So it's forever long. And they must have found somebody with something because, oh my gosh, dude, it's not moving. The other side's just, booking through, whatever, right? So I'm there. Finally, it starts moving again. I get up there for my turn, and the guy, like, turns around to go do something else. I'm like, whatever. And I just leave because I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm not waiting for you. And I hear this, sir, wait. And I'm like, whatever, dude, I'm out. So I'm leaving, right?
Right.
Dude, I'm walking to my car, which is on the other side of the parking lot. Like, it's a hike. I'm almost at my car, and I hear this, sir, it's the manager. They literally send the manager out to run me down. And so now I'm like, my ego's kicking in. I'm my heels are dug in, and I'm like, leave me alone. Like, I didn't say that, but I'm saying that without saying it. And he's like, sir, it's our policy to check the receipt. And I go, yeah, and I'm like, I don't care. I'm halfway to my car, right? So you're not going to the bathroom, are you? What are you doing?
No, my kid's thing right next to this is, I'm not joking. It's this like fake coffee maker Keurig thing, and I pick it up to move it, and I hit the button, and it's still going. Okay, now it's off. I'm sorry.
Give me a cup, man. I want a cup. Sounds like
and it's not even real coffee. Sorry about that. I was trying to get that out of the way, and it made it come on. And as soon as it came on, I'm like, crap, it sounds like I'm peeing.
I know. That's
and it's right in the middle of your story, too, man. So what'd you do? Did you get arrested? If you got arrested, I would be so proud.
No, you got to understand. I'm in California, right? This is not Ohio where you're at. So I'm thinking, I got my Glock 17 on me. I got an extra mag.
Oh, no.
I'm like, and the guys, and he starts going off. Oh, it's our policy. And at that point I go, look, now you're really starting to annoy me. I go, you touch my stuff, that's illegal. And he goes, what's illegal? I go, you touch any of my stuff, that's illegal. And he's like, I'm not touching your stuff. And I'm like, I know you're not. And I click the button on my trunk to open up my trunk. And I forget everything that I carry in my trunk. Now, fortunately, all I had in there exposed, and it wasn't exposed. I keep that beautiful Ruger PCC in the bag that has a big patch on it that says Black Rifles Matter, with the AR-15. The dude looks at it, and I'm putting everything in my truck, and then he's like, okay, all right. And he turns around and leaves, and I'm like, oh crap, dude. Because this is California. Yeah. All he's got to do is say to the cops, hey, I saw a rifle in his trunk.
Oh, no.
And next thing you know, I got a half a dozen cops all over me. I'm down on the ground. Guarantee you I'm going to jail. It doesn't matter that I didn't do anything illegal. It doesn't matter that I got a carry permit. Nothing matters in California.
Yeah.
And so now I'm freaking out going, what? Just why didn't I let him check my freaking receipt? Why did my ego kick in? Why did I dig in my heels? Now I'm the biggest idiot in the world. And so I just throw everything in my car, throw the basket in the little basket holder, and I'm like, I am out of here right now. And I am obeying every law on the way home. I am under the speed limit, and I'm keeping an eye out everywhere. I'm like, oh, geez, what did I do? But it was one of those panic moments where it was
yep,
this is California. Homeboy's going to look at that, see the Black Rifles Matter badge, realize it's a rifle bag, and be like, he has a rifle in his car. And we've had shootings out here at Costco in California. The last few months, we've had a number of shootings, not at that particular one, but at another one. And so, they're all on high alert and, don't piss off anyone. And, see something, say something. You know that whole thing is going on. And I was like, dude, so right now I'm afraid to go back to Costco. Like, do they have a sign out? Be careful of this guy. Immediately call police. Do not approach. Like the whole thing is like running through my head. I'm like, why did I do that? Freaking, it was a stupid receipt. Like, why was that the thing that bothered me today? But it was. It did. And I needed to leave. I wanted to go. I didn't want to wait in their stupid line. And
because you hadn't done anything wrong.
Well, technically, if you make me wait, that's kidnapping. You can't hold someone against their will. And if I don't want to wait there, you can't make me stop.
Yep.
And you can't make me give you my receipt. So that's called assault if you force it away from me. So it's like, I literally could not believe they called the manager to freaking follow me in the parking lot to the other end of the parking lot to check the freaking receipt.
Well, and side note, if you were going to rob the place, you're not going to have your car parked all the way on the other side of the parking lot. You're going to want to do a fast getaway. And so they should have been like, this guy's nothing. Just let him go.
This redheaded punk. I mean, the whole reason they do that receipt thing is not what they tell you. Like the guy's like, we just want to check and make sure that you got charged appropriately. To which I wanted to respond, if your checkers need better training, that's on you. It's not my responsibility to help you with your checker problem. Yeah. Because that's what you're telling me is you've got a checker problem. Mm-hmm. What it is to stop shoplifting. And I totally get it. I mean, I get it. If I was a business, I'd probably do things to stop it too. But you got to realize where your rights stop.
Yep.
And when I no longer consent to you infringing on my rights, then they need to train their employees to say, look, we technically can't stop them. If they don't want to stop, we can't do anything.
Yeah.
They can go.
That's exactly right. Well, because I know here in Cleveland, and this happens in a lot of places, if there has been an actual crime, they actually stack the charges. So so one of the issues, there's so many different cases, long story why I know about a couple of these things, but if a guy, we actually had a situation here in Cleveland, a guy held up a couple for money, right? So just robbed him at gunpoint. Bad thing, really bad. But his thinking, he's like, I'm going to get a few bucks and I'm going to be on my way and this is going to be over. Well, when he got caught, they didn't just charge him for the robbery. They said, well, for 2 minutes, those people were detained. And so now we're going to throw a kidnapping charge on top of it. Well, then they threw on a gun charge and whatever. So what they do is they stack it all up so that then they can plea bargain you down. So here he's looking at like 100 years in prison. He pleads down to like 30. And this guy who definitely did something wrong, but nobody got hurt, whatever. Like he's being a stupid kid doing something definitely illegal, definitely bad. But I'm like, man, so I'm thinking if that plays out there, I wonder if it could play out in your case, right?
Oh, absolutely. Well,
you could be like, well, hey, I was held against my will. Like this meets those categories for.
I would have to try. The problem is I still wouldn't win. Like it doesn't matter in California. It's not like the courts are unbiased. The courts are totally biased in California. So you're toast.
Yep.
Bare minimum, I'm losing my CCW. Like bare minimum, the county's going to take it away because you didn't let them check your receipt on the way out of Costco. Yeah. But it's like. Mr. Costco guy, if you're listening, I do wholeheartedly apologize. I shouldn't have made your life more difficult. My sincere apology on that. There. Yeah. I said it. I actually do mean it. I shouldn't have gotten my ego and my feathers all ruffled up and I just freaking check my... So what if I had to wait an extra, 2 minutes leaving Costco? But still, I just... Like, it's stuff like that happens... There. Yeah, stuff like that happens and you realize, like, especially here in California, you can't, like, the way you react to different things when you conceal carry, you have to change. Like, I shouldn't have done anything that would have upset anyone, partially because, I don't want my constitutional rights infringed upon. I don't want them to take away my concealed carry permit. But at the same time, things can escalate. Like, things weren't going to escalate with him, right? And they weren't going to escalate with me. I was like, dude, I even told him, I go, dude, you're really annoying me now. Like, leave.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. You're not checking my stuff. We're done.
Yeah.
And, you got to be careful with all that stuff because some people will escalate things, and then it's going to go out of control. And I mean, that's one of the things, like when I had to take my my concealed carry weapons course out here in California, they went through, it was taught by a couple of ex-cops, and they're retired now from the police. And so they give all these scenarios and they ask, what would you do in this scenario? And the biggest takeaway I took from that whole thing is, I don't care if you see someone getting robbed. I don't care what it is. Don't pull your gun unless your life is imminently in danger, someone in your family is imminently in danger, or someone else is going to be seriously hurt or killed if you don't do something. And because all these examples he ended up giving were real life examples, we didn't know they were real life until he ended up telling us, well, here's how this actually played out. And he went through all of them. And the biggest takeaway I got was, people, 98% of the time when they're robbing something or someone, they just want the stuff. That's all they want. Let them have it. It's not worth dying over. Yeah. And so there was even a great video that I saw on the internet. Somebody in some Central American country was getting in a fight, in some deli type thing. So it was all the camera that they had that was recording it. And these two guys are clearly getting in a fight. And so one guy takes out his firearm, but he leaves it at his side. He just took it out. He didn't point it at the guy. And right then, the guy hits him in the temple, knocks him out. The guy falls flat back. The guy picks up his gun and shoots him 6 times with his own gun.
Oh, man.
And what the guy was thinking was, well, I don't want to kill him. I'm just going to scare him. I got a gun. And it's like, no.
Doesn't work that way, man.
Dude, now you just raise the level. Now the guy has to do something. Yeah. And in his case, he knocked you out, took your own gun, and killed you with it. But he could have said, hey, I was in fear for my life. That guy pulls out a gun.
Yeah.
So you don't pull unless you have to shoot.
Same here. My philosophy is I don't even want to pull in an escalation. I only want to pull if I am planning on pulling the trigger,
exactly
within a fraction of a second.
Right.
It's, I want them to not know I have a gun and then be dead.
Exactly.
And that's the sad reality. I'd rather not have anything. And that's where what we were talking about here, the idea of de-escalating and doing everything we can through conversation to de-escalate, let them take the stuff, don't care about that much. Unless someone is physically in danger, we want to not use lethal force. But at the same time, unless someone is in imminent danger, we don't even want to pull the gun because of all the bad things that can happen. I'm feeling you, man. Definitely feeling you on it.
Long story short, I don't know that I'll ever be able to go back to Costco.
Hey, that's all right. Well, there's Sam's Club, there's BJ's, or you could go to a different Costco,
Oh, man. All for that.
This is, what, though? There's some of these things where I have to wrestle through. Okay, so there's some violation of your rights that go on when they're trying to stop you to enforce some. This is what I go through, at a traffic stop check that the cops are doing, where they're doing a roadblock, and I'm like, this is not okay. This is a violation of my rights. But if I make a stink about this, well, now we've got a bigger issue that I don't want to deal with, especially if I'm concealed carrying, right?
Exactly.
So then what happens is, this is what bothers me about it, though. This is why I have to wrestle through it. It means I'm allowing them to erode away my rights, and I've got to think through. Okay. So when is the line? When do we say, you know what, you're just not allowed to do this? And how do we do that in such a way where because I know what that escalates things too, and I'm in a place where I'm wrestling through. All right, how do we deal with this? I've thought through do I start going individually to cops that I know and say, listen, can I get you to agree to just not enforce unconstitutional laws? Can you just look, here's what the Constitution says about this. Here's what this law says. Can I get you to agree to just not enforce that? Can you just make me a personal promise, as you already have made an oath to the Constitution? Can you just agree not to enforce that? And you take whatever disciplinary things come on you, and I'll do everything I can to back you up. But I don't want to be in a position where I have to escalate things so high just to have the constitutional law upheld for myself and my family.
Right.
And crazy times. Sorry for all that, man. Sounds like a headache. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I've had a couple of those where I'm like, crap, what's somebody going to think? And then you're driving, like, thinking, like, all of the worst case scenarios. Like, you're just sick to your stomach. I've totally done that.
Well, dude, I was the whole time home. I'm like, like, if this is the thing that gets me into trouble, like, how stupid is that? I didn't let you check my receipt. And, like, that's the thing. But, here's part of that, the issue with, like what you're talking about with getting cops to agree that they aren't going to enforce any unconstitutional laws. So the 10th Amendment is the one that is basically been reversed without them actually reversing it. And for those of you who don't remember what the 10th Amendment is, it says the power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Mm-hmm. So basically what that means is there are things that the federal government can regulate or not regulate. And if it's not prohibited, then everything else belongs to the state or to the people. So technically, that means all of the gun laws in the states are unconstitutional because that power is regulated to the federal government, not to the states. Mm-hmm. So all of that is completely unconstitutional. California, our misery that we have to go through, all of that, the CCW, all of that is technically unconstitutional because the 10th Amendment says feds have that power, not the states. States can't touch it. The FDA, federal government, does not have the power to have the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, because that's not outlined in the Constitution. So that technically stays with the states and the people. But we don't even care anymore. And a big part of that switch happened when we went from being from having our senators. Basically, they were elected by the state legislatures. That was the original Constitution. And then what was it, the 18th Amendment or the 16th? I can't remember which one it was. Made it so the people elect the senators. And that changed the game. See, when your state legislator elects you, and that's, by the way, why they were the most powerful between the House and the Senate. The Senate has all the power. They have the 6-year terms. They have all that. And the House has like no power in 2-year terms because they were elected directly by the people, and the other ones were elected by the states, and they wanted, like, you had to fight for your state because if you didn't, they're going to fire you and elect someone else because it was your state legislator who sent your senators in. And the game changed when all of a sudden it was like, oh, now it's the people. So now it's not, what does my state want? What's in the best interest of my state? It's, oh, what do the people want, or what do I think the people want, or what's going to help me win the presidency? I'm going to show I was that kind of a senator. And essentially with that, the 10th Amendment went away. Yep. And
this is where they're just using it as a platform to try to run for president later.
They are, but they have all the power at the same time.
Yeah.
So
it's a mess. Oh, yeah. So it drives me crazy, man. I'm feeling it. Anyway, bums me out. I'm feeling bad for your situation, feeling bad for our country, but I'm going to be okay. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say. So tell us about your preschool thing.
Yeah, man. So I've got a kid in preschool. My youngest is in preschool, and she's my daughter. We call her Wu-Tang because she's gangsta.
Nice.
And she's my one who, like, she won't smile at anybody. She just gives a cold stare, and she's awesome. Like, she's sweet to me. She loves, in our house, but, like, she'll just, like, stare people down. She's awesome. Love this kid. Anyway, I love all my kids. She's just the fun baby right now. So her preschool that we have her in, we just have her in preschool first time this year. And preschool did a lockdown drill for active shooter. And actually, right around the same time, within a couple of days of each other, the city schools did an active shooter drill also. Just so happened. The preschool we in is in a different school district, but everybody's doing lockdown drills. And it was interesting to me because, I'm talking to them, and they don't really explain too much to the kids, so they tell me, because they don't want to scare them. I'm sure they have to for the older ones. But the preschoolers, they're like, hey, sometimes people get into the school that aren't supposed to be here, and so we hide. And they're all explaining that. I'm thinking, like, okay, but how much are you going to really do, right? Hiding my daughter in the back of a room with the lights out when it's a school. They know that there are kids in every room, for crying out loud. And so when I picked her up that day and, they're talking about, hey, we did our drill today, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's fine, whatever. I'm like, but just so you know, I think you guys should carry guns. And I would much prefer that you were armed to defend my child. And it was interesting that the preschool teachers were like, yeah, we're not against that. If we had the opportunity, I think we'd carry. And I'm like, well, that's what I'm talking about. So just an interesting thing, as we're talking about all this, there's been some research out there related to active shooter drills. And, I recognize that the active shooters in schools have been gotten a lot more attention in the last few years or whatever. The reality is, statistically, it is such a slim chance of that happening in your school. I mean, it's so slim. And so there's this argument of, are we doing much good doing a drill when it scares kids maybe unnecessarily for something that probably won't ever happen? We're talking about it's a whole lot less likely than a fire, a whole lot less likely than a whole bunch of other things that could be going down that could be bad, that probably we should prepare for. And so they're like, what's the purpose behind this? We know this probably isn't going to happen, and there's not that much that they can do if it does, besides arm them, which they're not willing to do. What's the purpose of these things? And so I will put on my tinfoil hat a little bit and say, what really is the purpose of doing active shooter drills in schools, especially in a preschool? It seems like the purpose is to instill fear and gain compliance. And I'm just not a big fan of it. And so that's been bugging me just a little bit. Like, I don't think this is doing any good, and it's scaring kids potentially unnecessarily.
Well, what's funny is one of my buddies from college, he's a Navy SEAL. He was with SEAL Team 5, I believe. He was SEAL Team 5 before he came to college. Then he GI Bill, went to college. And we hadn't been at war yet when he was active duty. And I think he went back to active duty after when the wars all started, but I'm not 100% on that. I do know he was a Mustang, which means he was enlisted before, but after earning his college degree, he went back and was minimum a lieutenant, an officer. And so I'm Facebook friends with him and with his wife, and he's not on social media much because he's like you in that he wears the tinfoil hat, and so he doesn't want to put everything out there on social media, which I'm sure is wise, much wiser than me. And so his wife was saying that they were like, the family was at the zoo, and all of a sudden, all of the people are like hurting all of the zoo workers are hurting all of the people indoors, and they're like, there's a situation in the park, we need to herd everyone in. And she's like, I could just see Chad now being like, there's no freaking way we're going in there, because he's thinking active shooter. And he's like, if there's an active shooter, you don't go in a big clump with all the people and make it easy for everyone. He's like, you get out, you leave. And so that's one of my fears when I hear stuff like that, is I'm like, is what we're doing the right move? Like, how exactly are you going to do active shooter drills that help? Like, I don't know how staying in a room is going to help.
Yeah.
I
don't. I recognize that if you make it a slightly harder to be found, sure. Like, but we're talking about barely mitigating the danger.
And I'm sorry, but kids are going to be crying, which means it's going to be easy to find them.
Yeah.
No matter where they're hidden, one little sniffle and they're found.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That's why I'm like, man, let's get some SBRs. Maybe plan the rounds. Maybe get them some SOCOM 458s. Maybe a little bit less likely to go through walls. Let's do whatever we need to, and let's do some real training.
Let's put some slugs in the shotguns, so that way,
yeah, man. So and I tell you what, some of the teachers in my daughter's school, they would be totally down. I would not.
But see, that's because you live in a free state. In my state, the last thing I would trust is a teacher with a gun.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, first of all, I'm not really in the habit of training liberals on how to use firearms, and all the teachers are liberals, so I don't want them to know.
It is interesting, though. That would probably be similar here in some cases. In this school, this is my daughter's Christian school, right? So most people are pretty pro-gun there. So
that's good.
Yeah, helps me. Oh yeah, no, it's crazy. So I've been thinking on that recently, and all coming back to the whole issue of people don't like to do what is statistically wisest. They like to do what is politically expedient.
Yeah.
Right? Lockdown drills are politically expedient. Arming teachers is not politically expedient, right?
Yeah.
Even we just had the what is it, FBI or CDC release the stats on gun violence. We were talking about that in the last episode. Like, the stats are really not helpful to any kind of a narrative that is anti-gun. But nobody cares. Like, we've had the same kind of numbers. I mean, they fluctuate, but the general consensus is gun bans haven't been working. From a statistical perspective, they don't help. They might even just make things worse. And we've been looking at these same kind of numbers year after year after year, but the anti-gun people don't care, because they're not making a decision based on facts. They're making a decision based on their own personal feelings and how they play out politically.
Well, see, I don't know what it's like in Ohio, but here in California, the law is that schools K through college, K through any university, doesn't matter, private, public, doesn't matter, you cannot have a firearm on campus. So they're gun-free zones. And technically, in fact, I was having this conversation earlier today with a buddy of mine, you can't have a firearm within 1,000 feet of a school unless you live there, or if you happen to have a concealed carry weapons permit, then you can be on the sidewalk, but you can't go onto the school property. And the problem is, and this is one thing I was listening to or watching the interview with Joe Rogan and Colin Noir, or however he says his name.
Colin Noir, yeah.
Yeah. It's not his real name. That's his pen name. And I can never pronounce it anything anyway. So he had a really good point. I was watching him on Joe Rogan, and he goes, look, here's my thing. If you're going to have something be a gun-free zone, then make it a real gun-free zone. He goes, I grew up in a gun-free school, but we had metal detectors and fences all the way around. Yep. So you couldn't get in unless you went through the metal detector. He goes, the problem is we've just declared something gun-free. And then, well, I mean, I can't really stop you if you have a gun, because I didn't make you go through a metal detector. I didn't, close the gates on the side of the building. It's an open campus. And I agree. Here in California, that's a huge problem. If you're going to have it be a gun-free zone, then you need to treat it like a gun-free zone. That means our courts are gun-free, but they got cops guarding them, and you got to go through a metal detector to go inside the court. Yeah. So they've made it a true gun-free zone. Yeah. As opposed to, yeah.
Oh, and you're exactly right. By the way, I'm not a fan of that either. But at the very least, they're enforcing the rule. Right?
Oh, I'm not a fan either. Yeah. But at least then it's not just, some politically, how dare they go in there and do that? Now we got to take away all the good guys' guns, because we basically made the gun-free zone a joke. I mean, that's basically what we did.
So, are you ready for just a little bit of tinfoil hat time?
Oh, please.
So, are you familiar with Operation Northwoods?
Only from what you've said on the podcast.
This is, again, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is declassified. Memorandum for the Secretary of Defense that was from March 13th, 1962. The subject was justification for U.S. military intervention in Cuba. And essentially, the CIA had put together a plan to take a page from Adolf Hitler, who was able to start a war by, fake attacking Germany as if he was Poland, right? And they put together an entire plan to launch an attack on American citizens in the state of Florida in order to justify an offensive against Cuba. Now, this is a whole plan that went to the president's can. Of course, the president, by God's grace, JFK is like, this is crazy, guys. We're not going to kill American citizens to justify a war. And of course, we know nothing bad ever happened to JFK in response to anything like this. But this is a real thing. Like, this is not like you can go up. Like,
it was the banking cartel that took out JFK.
Right.
Let's get the right tinfoil hat on.
But if you look up Operation Northwoods, the information was declassified in, I can't remember what it is. I want to say 84 was when it was declassified. But you can look at the actual documents. Like, this was a plan was put together to harm American citizens in order to justify some other military action, and ultimately involving taking away our freedom once it came down to it. And so I always like to point out, like, hey, this wasn't a joke. This is not a tinfoil hat thing, actually. They really planned for this, and they got shot down by the president. And so anytime I see something happen that has a little bit of fishiness to it, and I'm like, okay, like, I mean, maybe that really happened, but the results are we lose freedom and we have more military action. Well, that causes, if they're getting the result they wanted from Operation Northwoods, and we're seeing it through some other means, I mean, I got big questions. And so again, I'm not putting together a theory. I'm just saying we know they wanted to do this. Well, now these kinds of things are happening. So how should we respond? And so recommend just do some study on Operation Northwoods. This is, you don't have to get on your crazy tinfoil hat. You can read an actual declassified document from the CIA that it got shot down, but we know that they wanted to. That's just crazy. So anyway, little side note on that. So I think the same thing when I think of like school shootings and there's some fishiness around it and they're arresting a whole bunch of people, but one guy gets tried. And all of a sudden they're talking about these various calibers that were used, but then we can't back that up in all of the guns that were found. There's all kinds of things that I'm like, what's the deal, guys?
Yeah, and it's kind of like the Vegas thing, the Vegas shooting.
Oh, yeah.
Like there are more cameras in Vegas than probably in freaking London. And like... Dude. There's no videos of all this, and you guys keep changing the timeline of when you showed up, and when it's enough to make you look at it and go, I don't understand why this is so difficult for you guys to just tell us what went down.
Yeah. Well, did you see, so Iraq Veteran 8888, the YouTube channel, which is I love those guys. They talk about freedom a lot, review some great guns. They're fun, and the dude knows his guns well. But he's like, he's a veteran, and he's like, listen, I know a saw when I hear it. He's like, he's like, somebody was shooting something that was not an AR-15 in a slide fire bump stock. He's like, somebody was firing a saw. I know the sound of it. I've listened to the recordings. I heard a saw. So he's filing for Freedom of Information Act information. He's like, somebody did something that they're not telling us. I think that's still going on. I haven't seen the latest, but I remember when he was filing info on this, he's like, I know what a saw sounds like. I heard it. Somebody needs to give me an answer on what happened here.
Interesting.
That was my thing, is I'm like, I'm not an expert on fully autos. I mean, just honest truth, I've only shot one full auto myself. I have had some other guns that went bang kind of fast, but they were not full autos. And and so it's always interesting to me. I'm like, man, I remember listening to the audio or watching some of the videos, listening to the audio, and I'm like, I mean, that's the, there's like a steady that sounds like a saw, and I'm like, I am not an expert, but that I remember listening and being like, that doesn't sound like a slide fire AR. Like, that just doesn't. This sounds like something else to me. And so and I'm like, maybe there's things going on in the recording. I recognize that there's all kinds of things that can happen. There are echoes.
Yeah.
I recognize that. Like, I'm not trying to say I know what's going on there, but I just remember listening and being like, something doesn't sound right about this. This doesn't sound like what they're saying it is. So, anyway, check out Operation Northwoods. For those conspiracy theory lovers. By the way, do you want to know how there was a whole trend? I know we got to finish up because we're going to run out of time here. There was a whole trend on Facebook for a while to talk about whatever thing and then say, if you really want to look more into this, just Google. And they would have one of these. It was either MK Ultra or Operation Northwoods. And it was hilarious. I'm like, this is a great way to get people to Google various government conspiracies that they would never Google otherwise.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it was great.
I like it.
Anyway, good stuff, man. So you want me to close this out?
Go ahead.
All right, so on our topic earlier, you were talking about de-escalating situations and when to pull a gun, and if you have to, you better be ready to use it. Want to recommend Lake Erie Arms for that specifically. Lake Erie Arms is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio that actually has a live-action simulator. So this is where you have the faux Glock with CO2 in it, and you watch a video and you're in an active situation where you are communicating with the people on it and you are deciding when to shoot and when not to shoot. Highly recommend it. It is great training, great experience, because you're actually learning when you need to pull, when not to, and it actually goes through, if you draw sometime and when you shouldn't, it goes through what are you going to say to the cops when they show up. Great stuff. Lake Erie Arms, you can sign up. It's a lot of fun anyway, but great training. So learms.net, you can contact them, drop in. You can take a whole group in and do a full simulation training and get really prepared for an active defense situation. So learms.net, check out Lake Erie Arms, and we'll talk to you soon.
Cool. All right, guys. We will be back next week with another great episode. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
You've been listening to the From Concealment Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams. Be sure to tune in next week for more gun talk. Also, check out the From Concealment website for more shooting-related goodness at FromConcealment.com.